give me your love. So give me your love. I need you when I see you. You surprise me. Your face is beautiful to see you. Every night I take your heart. So give me your love. So give me your love. Give me your love.
Taking in operators that work for a private military company? Absolutely.
I took you in.
I wasn't the enemy.
Neither are they. Just before dawn, the supertanker Argus was attacked.
Pirates.
Yes, and if they can't have the ship, they'll destroy it, and everyone on board.
So they called for Night Haven?
No, they called for help.
You'll rescue this ship, or you'll be walking home.
Swimming!
You'll be swimming home, so don't fuck it up.
Callie, they're actually shooting at us.
Are they now? Woman! Time to get wet!
Take cover!
What's our status?
They seem very committed. And they've got another firecracker.
Not for long.
So that's it? They save a ship and we let them in?
Yes, they save a ship. I think we let them in.
Well, there goes the neighborhood.
Hello and welcome back to Talking Siege. We have a very special episode tonight where we're going to be chatting with Lycan from Space Station. And Cthulhu's unfortunately not available. He's currently flying back from Russia. So me, Sky, and Lycan will be bringing you the show tonight. Lycan, welcome to the podcast and thank you so much for coming along.
Yeah, hi. Thanks.
So we've got quite a lot of ground to cover tonight. We're going to be talking a lot about Space Station, Lycan, about his history, about the history of the team, their recent achievements, which have been numerous, And also the Six Invitational, which is upcoming. We have almost every single team, well, technically all the teams who qualify by competing have been locked in. We just have that one invite spot left. So a lot of discussion we can have about that. And yeah, all kinds of stuff happening in 2020. There's a lot of roster updates that have happened as well recently, and plus Pro League starting this very week. So we'll talk about that as well. To kick things off, though, I do just want to mention that video that we were playing before the show started. It was the Nighthaven video. A little bit of extra lore has been introduced into Rainbow Six recently with the addition of the Nighthaven, with Wamai and Kali being brought into the game. And there's a lot of backstory as to why they were introduced and how that works. Kali is actually the owner of this organization, Nighthaven, and they have now teamed up with Rainbow. So keep your eyes peeled for more lore related to that. And you can actually get the Nighthaven collection, which are a couple of cosmetic items that are from Nighthaven, now on the other Rainbow Six characters. You can get them in game. I believe that they're closing tomorrow. So if you haven't got them already and you're keen to get them, make sure you get them quick. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the game side of things. Let's get into really talking about what we want to talk about, which is our guest, Lycan. To kick things off, I thought it would be great if you could explain a little bit about your history as a player and kind of tell us who you are, who you are. Like, tell us, where did you come from and what is it that you do in Rainbow Six?
Sure. Yeah. So when I first started, I've played since closed beta. And I started in the first season of Rainbow Six, Year 1, Season 1 as a player. I played for Astral Authority in NA. And then after that, played for Empire, which was completely different than obviously the Empire now. And then Team Ferocity, and then Onslaught, Omen, Risky Gaming, basically a bunch of different teams. I did 5 seasons in Pro League, and then the last 2 seasons I played in Challenger League. My team got hit with like a really bad 3-of-5 rule Year 2, Season 1, which caused us basically to lose our Pro League status. So I was like forced to try to like fight back on a team called Onslaught through Challenger League. The first year in Challenger League, I won that season, but we lost our relegation game. And then the second season I was in Challenger League, we won again, and we won our relegation game. And then a couple weeks after we'd won it, I got dropped from, like, I owned the team. Like, I was the team captain. I got dropped from that team, and it left me kind of like trying to find what I was going to do. And little known fact, when that happened, I joined a team called Omen, and then I tried out a kid named Rampy, and got him on my team. Like, one tryout, I was like, I want this guy on my team. And that's when I found Rampy, and did like a half season, or we did the invitational qualifier as a team that year. And then after that, I like qualified with this random team that I made like with one day in the next Challenger League season. And then Trippin from Spacestation Gaming DM'd me and said, hey, like, we're looking for a coach. I don't know if you're interested in doing that. And I did some soul searching and decided it was probably time to be done. I was 29 then, I think. And I was like, yeah, it's probably time to be done. And I've fell in love with coaching, and I've been doing it ever since.
Yeah, great. I think there's a huge history lesson there, because you are one of the longest running players in the Rainbow Six scene, and one of those players that has transitioned from player to coach. And like you said, you've loved it. I'm keen to hear a little bit about not just your history as a coach, but also you as a person. We were having a little bit of a chat before we went live about, what it's like to be what I would say is a much maturer player than a lot of these other Pro League players, and in that you have a family, and that's something that not many Pro League players do. Typically, a lot of esports players are very young and maybe just finished school, turned 18, and they're ready to try something new. Tell us a bit about yourself and how you've progressed your professional career into esports.
Sure. So when I was playing in Season 1, that was the year I was actually transitioning out of the Navy. The league started in February, and I actually got out of the Navy in April. So like while I was transitioning and flying home, because I was stationed in Pearl Harbor, so I was like flying from Hawaii back to where I live now, and trying to still like scrim and all that stuff and stay up and play with the team. So when that happened, actually, like then in May, I had my third kid too. So like that year was like crazy, a lot of stuff going on. But yeah, I've been married 9 years. In December, we had our anniversary. I have 3 boys, 7, 5, and 3. And yeah, I'm like a huge family guy, and I play video games. I'm very blessed with a wife who gives me a lot of shit, but like still at the same time, like lets me do what like my passion is. So yeah, I'm very blessed.
Great. Yeah. I wanted to touch on a little bit about Space Station as a team. We've talked a little bit about how you got to that point, but then Space Station, I think it was quite a big point in your career when you moved into coaching, and Space Station is a team that's had a lot of success. Let's talk a little bit about the US Nationals and kind of getting to that point as a team where you really felt like you'd become one of the top in North America. Can you tell us a bit about Space Station's journey through 2019 as a whole and where that led you by the end of it?
Yeah, I think you can even kind of start that just a little bit before 2019 in November, which was DreamHack Winter. We did really well at that event. We had just picked up Bosco, and we made it all the way to the semifinals against Penta, and whoever won that got the invitational spot because G2 had already made it to the finals. They just beat Empire. So falling there was like pretty heartbreaking for us, but also too at the same time it was the first like major success we had at the team. When I first showed up as a coach, they were barely kind of a top 4 team in North America. Like they somehow always ended in the 4th place spot, but it was like everyone was like, whoa, we didn't expect that to happen. So they're like, that was like you could see us like growing as a team, hit like with that DreamHack Winter. And then Invitational obviously was when I think we opened up a lot of people's eyes because we were like the only team to take a map off of G2. I don't think many people considered us to even get out of groups because we were with Empire, who was the top seed out of EU, Immortals, who was the top seed out of Latin America at the time, and then Rogue, who had always done well at international events. And then we were like the 4th person in that, and no one really expected us to get out. So when we did, I think that showed a lot of people that we were like ready to play. And as the year progressed, I think we just kept showing that we could win at LAN, and we would struggle online. I think that's like pretty much what a lot of people consider for us. And then as the year progressed, we got to Raleigh, and I think we showed once again that was the first time we'd ever made it out first place in groups. Once again, showing that we're getting better as a team. We got beat by Secret, which we considered an upset and kind of like a flaw in our like prep for that game. They played really well too, so like it was a really great game for them. Kind of like showed that they still had it, But it was a heartbreak for us. And then Troy approached us. He said that he wanted to go a separate way, and the rest of EG wanted to go a separate way because they just felt like they weren't really meshing anymore. And we saw it as a great opportunity. I think the one thing that I always lacked on my team was a person who could call what I wanted to happen, which is why we always had like as many roster changes as we did. Was I was just in this ever ending search for an IGL that I liked and like could do it the way I wanted to do it. And Troy is like been perfect. So I think finally we've come into like what I've always seen as a team, and it's about to get exciting for us.
I think you really did adopt the poster boy for Rainbow Six as well when you picked up Troy Canadian. That man has a lot of accolades behind him with his Six Invitational victory, and I think just being known as one of the most emotional players and most esteemed players in the game. You said it was quite a big deal picking him up. How do you feel like that has impacted the team, and how has he been incorporated into the team? Did it take a while to get that chemistry together, or do you feel like it was made to be?
Well, I think you can see in like our second half, like we obviously didn't perform very well. We did have some wins, a lot of ties, like always, and a couple losses, which we don't think that should have happened. And like, a lot of it was just like one, obviously the roles were wrong. We just misjudged how we should have put the roles. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that Fultz was still a young player and Troy had always like been on like the Ash, like he was known for being a really good Ash player. And so I think we were just kind of worried with how much time that we had, and we threw Troy in there. And afterwards we realized like it just made way more sense if we could just put Canadian on the hard breach and give Fultz a real try at trying to be an entry fragger, and it's all worked out like so well. I think one thing that took a lot of time was just Troy to get used to like how I like to play the game, because coming over from EG, they had a different play style than I like to play, and so he just had to basically like get rid of the the little like plays that he would make on that team and learn the new plays to make like on a team like Space Station. And I told you like before we started, when season 10 ended, we didn't take a single day break. We started scrimming the next day after season 10 ended because we knew we had a lot of work to do, and we used all of that time like before OGA, and even OGA was like practice for us. I mean, I don't think that our side of the OGA bracket was the hardest, but even then we were still like trying to figure things out and make new strats, and we were just putting them straight into like the qualifier games. So using that whole month of November, like we basically relearned how to play the game as a team, and December was how we showed how we learned.
To sort of jump back a little bit, you briefly touched on Canadian and his acquisition to Space Station, and how you found that he was an IGL that was quite skilled. I think the IGL role is one that's highly respected, and I think many would agree is quite a hard role to do well. I'm interested if you could maybe point out some of the things that you sort of look for in a highly skilled IGL, and maybe what does Canadian sort of possess that makes him a good IGL.
Yeah, I think a lot of the IGLs in Rainbow Six, at least that I've come across, are really good at calling what strat to run. They're just basically like, I guess you could call them a quarterback. I like to call them a field general. Basically, they see things from afar, and then they say, okay, the team's set up in CC. They have E-Box blown out. Like, they have ACOG's back in Horseshoe looking through the office. We have to take CC. We can't take office. And like, boom, that's it. That's like what they got. And then you just have to hope that everyone knows what to do for the rest of the round. But what's important, like, I mean, if you are able to take CC, but you're fighting and you lose some, and then you realize like, hey, they've pressured over onto bunker. Like, let's just hold someone watching beeper door, flip everyone around to archives, and get the plant down. Like, that's the kind of IGL that I want. Like, someone that can see like where things end up and be able to stop everybody and say, this is what we're doing now, go.
I definitely think that, especially for a lot of viewers, there's a bit of a cloud around people understanding that very top level siege, and things like how an IGL functions and how a team functions is certainly something that I think a lot of people are keen to learn about, but it's very inaccessible. So it's fantastic to hear insight from someone such as yourself and from a team like Space Station. Kind of following that train of thought, I wanted to hear a little bit more detail of what you were saying before when you were comparing the play styles of Space Station, how you like to play compared to what Canadian was used to back on EG, and how that was different. Can you elaborate a little bit in terms of what you might mean, and what kind of play styles and how a player might have to change the way that they look at the game to adapt to a new play style?
Yeah, I mean, without giving too much away, basically, we like to play a trap style like defense where we're working together. Like, I think that's something that's always been known. Is I think even back when we didn't have like all-star players, was that Space Station might not outshine you, but will out teammate you. And that's the kind of siege I really like to play. I mean, like, I think the easiest thing that most people will know, and Troy is going to hate me for even bringing it up, but like the whole issue with him on White Stairs at Milan, and then Geo's sitting in kids, and then Amar is sitting, or sorry, Geo's at generator, and then Amar or young. I actually don't remember who it was in kids, but like they're so spread out in a like situation where they had the man advantage. Like all of a sudden Troy gets taken out, but Gio has no way to trade him because Troy stood up. So like once Troy stood up, now Gio's forced in his own 1v1. And it was just 1v1 after 1v1, and they lose that round. Like that's one thing I always preach is, you know, if Troy was even supposed to be there, Troy lays flat and then Gio watches over the top of the stairs. So if the guy comes up to the top of the stairs, he kills Troy, like Gio immediately trades him. So like that's the kind of like thing I preach constantly when I see it in scrims. Like the second I see someone do something where there's not a crossfire, like that's something to talk about, you know? And that's a big difference between a lot of teams. A lot of teams really like to have their players shine, and like they don't like to be very structured. Like, and I don't mean that in a bad way either, that they're not structured. Some people like actually like to be able to be free. And I think a good example of that would be TSM. Like they have really, really good fraggers in Achieve, Bolo, Merc, and they kind of just, you know, let them play and like make those big plays. And that's just a different play style than we have, you know?
Yeah, I definitely see what you're talking about, especially I'm getting the same vibes talking to you as I get when I talk to Dizzle from Fnatic. You guys are both very much father figures for the team who have a very good perspective, I think. I want to move on and chat a little bit about what happened near the end of 2019. Space Station, you guys unfortunately failed to qualify for Season 10 finals, but that wasn't where it ended for you guys. You played at the OGA Pit Minor in Croatia, and you also played in the online qualifiers for North America for the Six Invitational. Let's start with OGA. Can you tell us a little bit about what it was like going into the minor and your journey to eventually what was, I think, a very impressive result?
For me personally, extremely nerve-wracking. We had some like very bad like ticket issues before the event too. So like traveling there like was rough. 4 of the guys like had to spend a night overnight in Turkey, and we had tried our best to like make sure that we tried to get on a good sleep schedule, but then it was like just blown out of the water because of like all the issues we had. So it OGA was interesting for us because it was like our first chance, like after this long month. It was like, all right, this is where we see if like what we've been doing works. Because a lot of times in scrims, you know, like sometimes it works in scrims and it doesn't work in matches, like whatever the case may be. And so I mean, obviously right away with Norangu, we were very prepared for them. I think just their strats and stuff, I think were very basic for a North America team. Something we see like all the time. And so it didn't take much, I think, for us to just create a game plan for that. And then for MIBR, we actually like we were just trying too hard. We wanted to show other maps that we knew that weren't like our best maps, but we were very confident that we were going to beat them, and we got slammed 2-0. And then so that was kind of like a whoops. We were able to come back against LG. We were pretty confident in doing that, and then we got our chance back at MIBR. We went with like what we should have gone for map picks the second time around, and we won 2-0. So I guess that showed that we should have just done that the first time. But that was a learning process, and then Liquid was just like this unstoppable force. They were just on fire that event, and no one was going to do anything to stop them. So.
You guys did get pretty close, though. You managed to get one map away from them. It was still tough, and the other 2 maps weren't necessarily close. But in a best of 5, how do you kind of see approaching that? You mentioned how the map bans were so prevalent in the previous matches. Was it challenging going into Liquid? Was it just their raw form that they had in that moment, or was it the map ban veto or them bringing something unexpected?
Yeah, they actually tricked us on Cafe. Mostly because we hadn't I don't want to, it's totally an excuse, which is unfortunate. But we hadn't had enough time with the new Cade that we we didn't prepare enough for what they did to us on Cafe. Now we know, but like at the time, literally it dropped 3 days before, 4 days before the event, but we flew out on the day that it dropped. And so like we don't like playing on the TS because the TS is like very different than the online. And like even though you get to play with the new stuff, it's not always like the right feel, I feel like. So we didn't play with it, and you could put a Cade in a spot that we didn't know, and so we didn't ban it, and then it screwed us. So like I honestly think that if we know now what we knew then, we could have taken Cafe off of them. We obviously won Clubhouse, and then they won Bank, which we expected them to, but like we thought we would take Border. They are a pretty good Border team, but that is what it is. I mean, I think that they are a very good team, and like I expect them to take their maps, and us to take our maps. The only problem was they had a map advantage. So it's just like, if you're going to take your maps and they take their maps and they have a map advantage, you'll never win. So
yeah,
that's the tough part about being in the bottom bracket.
I'm sort of interested to actually jump back to the start of the OGA pit, where you mentioned that you faced off against Norengo. And you actually, obviously Norengo are from the APAC region. They're very close to home for us. And I think I'd be right in saying over the last few months, Norengo have really fallen off to, I guess you could almost say, they've really fallen off to what we've known, I guess the old Nora to be. I guess from a coaching perspective, is there anything in particular that sort of stands out that you think is sort of attributed to maybe Norengo not being as good as they used to be, or that sort of thing?
I think they lack strong support players. We noticed a lot of times that Mary would like whip out drones and drone for himself and walk around in weird places, and then a lot of times they tried to opt for just like a fast site rush instead of clearing a roam. Like they just were like not confident in being able to drone out people and actually like take fights, and like they didn't really clear utility. It just kind of seemed like most of what they would try to do is either surprise you or die fast. So I think honestly they need to go back to the drawing board and really work on a lot of different strats and kind of take a look at what other regions are doing and like why they do it the way they do it. Because when we were looking at stuff, it was just I'm not gonna lie, it was like North American Challenger League stuff. So I think definitely like losing the players that they lost and like roster changes, it just doesn't seem like they were progressing. It just kind of seemed like they're like flatlining.
Yeah, I definitely see that. I think Walker is the one player that people often talk about. He was a highlight player for them, but I think the key thing that Walker, in my perspective, brought was communication to that team. And I think it's so difficult to know from an outsider perspective exactly what the root of these issues are. You could see how they surface, but not necessarily what the cause of them is. Norengo didn't even make it. They came fourth in the online qualifier for Japan, the Six Invitational. Not even second, not even third. They were fourth behind Cyclops, Guts Gaming, and Detonation, which I think is a new low for Norengo. But look, I'm an optimist. I think that maybe they'll one day start to make a return. I know they were looking for a coach, and I definitely think that could help them. And we mentioned the Six Invitational qualifiers. Maybe it'd be good to move on and have a little bit of a chat about them. Actually, you know what? First up, we didn't really go into US Nationals yet, so I want to touch on that because that was really a huge moment for you guys. I want to know, US Nationals was, I think, a spectacular opportunity for Space Station to prove your worth because. Like we talked about before, you unfortunately didn't make it to Season 10 finals. Reciprocity and Dark Zero were ahead of you guys for that. Evil Geniuses has also been a top contender against you guys for quite some time. moving out of season 10 and going into US Nationals, what was it like going into that finals event for you guys, especially since it was finally an opportunity to play, on stage at a LAN event once again and against teams that you knew so well as they were all from North America?
It was kind of interesting because the week prior obviously was OGA, and at OGA we played every single map. We played all 7. So we had like nothing to hide. Literally, we showed every single map. So, I mean, we have more than one thing for everything, but I mean, if you could kind of get a good feel for what we were bringing, and also too at the same time, this kind of sounds a little terrible, but like you don't get anything out of winning USN. I mean, obviously you're Team USA, you win a LAN, obviously you get money, like all of those things are great. But we knew that the week afterwards was our chance to get our invitational spot. So it was this weird thing where we had just shown everything, and the next week we needed to win. And then we are stuck in this week where we had to play once again and show everything, and all the VODs would be there, and none of us want to lose. So we were like, all of us were like, well, I mean, like, we're going to play this and we're going to try to win, and we just know it's going to make next week harder. So that was like a very interesting spot to be in as a team. But I think we also were a little upset that we weren't able to beat Liquid, and we wanted to like kind of let that out on the rest of North America. And I think we did that pretty well. We didn't drop a single map, so I was super happy. It was like my first win. It was the best way to win. Like the whole tournament going without dropping a map was something really cool.
Yeah, I was rewatching the grand final today. It was a sight to behold. And I mean, the first thing you guys did going into that tournament was 2-0 the number 1 team out of North America, Dark Zero, who had such a good online season in season 10. And you went on to beat Sonics afterwards. And then you beat the arguably second best team in North America, Reciprocity, 3-0 in the grand final. What was it like going up against, let's say, Dark Zero and Team Reciprocity, as they had quite significant roster changes going into the US Nationals? And what did you guys think about the state of those teams going into the event? And now that you've seen those rosters play, what do you think of them coming out of it?
Well, like, obviously there's not a whole lot to say about Dark Zero because we like ended their run shortly. We did practice against we actually didn't practice against the like full like new roster at all prior to the event, because by the time they made that roster, they knew that they were going to play us at USN, so they didn't want to scrim us. Even though like we wanted to scrim them because they're a good team, because we were trying to prep for OGA. We're like, we don't care about USN. Like we want to play against the best teams, get ready for OGA and go there. But we understood why they didn't want to scrim us, so we had no info on them. We just like we're like, well, we have to go off of like all the old stuff, and kind of like we know very well about Skies and Echo. They're well known in the North American scene, so we know like what maps they prefer to like individually, and then you like kind of cluster that along with the 3 that remained, and we kind of came up with an idea of what we thought we should ban, and that's kind of like how we did it, which was kind of just like, I don't know. It seemed to obviously have worked out well. We never expected them to pick like to allow Coastline or Villa to go through, and they both went through, so that was what it was. And so I still think they need a little bit more time, but they're going to be a really good team. Like, they're all good players. As long as they mesh and there's no like, internal problems, I think they'll be fine. I just think it takes time. And then Rec is a little bit more of like a different issue too, because they're like more of like just a fragger lineup to me. Like, there are people who can support on DZ, but Rec's like just firepower in your face. So that team lineup is kind of like a little different to play against. Not saying it doesn't work, it's just very different. It's not standard for Siege. So I mean, I really enjoyed playing against both cases. I think that we just had a huge advantage on both of them because we had been together longer. But no, yeah, it was really fun to be able to play against both of them because it was like the 1 and 2 seed teams, and like to be able to say, okay, so we beat both of them. So like it's hard to say that we're not number one, you know.
Yeah.
I guess to sort of follow this path, obviously you ended your USN run beating Team Reciprocity 3-0, and hence becoming Team USA. And you sort of alluded to before that this was a really weird time for you guys because obviously you just unfortunately lost OGA Pitt. So you know that your final opportunity to make the 6 Invitational is going to be that online qualifier. So I guess now that we're done USN, and we're moving on, I guess the next roadblock, if you will, is going to be that online qualifier. I'm interested to hear, you know, obviously you've just beat one USN, you know, I'm sure all the guys are happy about that. How do you then proceed? As you said, you know, you feel like a lot of your sort of strategy and maps and VODs are all pretty freely available. How do you sort of, in that week leading up to the online qualifiers, how do you prepare and adapt and inevitably win that 6 Invitational spot?
I think a big thing was we just basically, the one hard thing about 6 Invitational is you don't know exactly who you're going to play, and you have to play multiple teams in a day. So kind of using that like hectic schedule kind of helped us a little bit because we were like prepared for everything months in advance, and like with the little info that we had. And so we just had to hope that the hectic schedule didn't allow them to use the mass amount of information that they had on us. And we basically took the opportunities to try to make the maps different than when we played them the last time. So they weren't like comfortable with like what we had already done to them. And that's basically kind of how we just like shielded and protected ourselves a little bit. I think the big thing too was just like the question mark about like, are we going to make it work online now that we're not on LAN, you know? And I think we proved that, which was really nice.
Yeah, I find that really interesting. Obviously, you guys, I feel like you sort of alluded to before that you feel and I'd say the results would probably move in the direction that you guys are quite a strong LAN team over being a strong online team. So I guess to sort of have 2 really strong LAN performances in winning USN and second place at OGA, to then sort of, I guess, come into this online event and sort of continue that, I guess, success on over. I can imagine that would be quite an exciting moment for you guys to sort of see that success, I guess, in both ends of competition.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was like one of these big things where like through the entire month of November, like I said, we didn't stop, but it was a case where there was no matches. Like every day we'd show up to work, you know, and it was like, all right, our match is like 25 days from now. All right, now it's 24 days from now, you know, like we're just like hitting the like practicing every day, but the matches are so far away, and it's like basically just builds up all this anxiety. You're like, you know, like when is it gonna be here? And like when it gets here, like, is it gonna be what we expect it to be? And then, you know, flying home after the invitational game, like it was so nice just to sit back and be like, man, like it was all worth it. Like we got done what we wanted to. I mean, close, you know, obviously we would love to win OGA, but I don't think you could ask for like a better month than we had. Like we were very happy with it.
It definitely looks like Space Station is in the best form that we've ever seen you guys, and that's saying something considering, as you mentioned before, your 6 Invitational 2019 and your Raleigh Major performances, which were both exceptional, I think. But you guys are looking like the best that you've been for a while. I wanted to get your thoughts on some of the other regions qualifiers because, yes, you guys are from North America, but Lycan, you got a pretty big brain in that noggin, I can tell, and I'm keen to hear your professional opinion on some of these other regions. So
Sure.
let's kick it off with EU. It was BDS who came through that one successful, quite a notable team, and look, it was a difficult, I think, road through the qualifiers, and I mean they're also a pro league team now. There are a lot of incredibly competitive teams in Europe. BDS came on top. I think notable players on that team would be the likes of Shaiko, has quite a reputation for many reasons. On top of Panix, who unfortunately it has been confirmed has been removed from the BDS roster, which kind of marks the second year in a row that he's qualified for the Six Invitational and then been removed from a team before being able to play at the Invitational itself. But yeah, so BDS, they're heading into Pro League next season, just another Titan to really make an impact in European Pro League. What are your thoughts on the European qualifier? Were there any standouts or surprises to you?
I mean, obviously Eminem, I think, is like the big standout from the event. I think it's hard to say whether or not they just had a very good day, because the run they made against the teams were technically in one day, and then the next day they showed up and they lost, which was unfortunate. So it's hard to say whether or not they just had really good Wheaties that day or whatever the case may be. I'm definitely interested to see how they play again. I think BDS definitely showed they were very impressive in that final day, because Secret really had been playing very well. So it's hard to say whether or not if Secret had an off day. I think BDS just showed up really well, very well prepared. Even that first map on Coastline, Secret beat them. It was either 7-1 or 7-2 the first time they played in the best of 3 series. And then BDS was able to take that map to distance and win it, which is a huge gut punch for the other team. When you just slam them on the map, they turn around and take you all the way to overtime and beat you. That takes a lot out of you as a team. So I think that's huge. I think that helped BDS a lot in the trying to come back from a map at a map disadvantage. So I think between BDS and M&M, I think they definitely were the big showers. Obviously, too, you can say the big disappointment obviously still is G2 trying to find their footing. I think it will come in time. I don't know how much time that's going to take, or if they have the people they need to make it work, or if they're playing the correct play style. Hopefully their coaching team figures out all that stuff. But yeah, no, EU was, they were the only one to have the lower bracket team win, correct?
Yeah, I think you're probably right on that one.
So that's pretty impressive. BDS being able to take out Secret, and
yeah,
they did it in pretty decent fashion too. So it was impressive.
Yeah, it was basically a 3-0 for BDS, because Team Secret
Right.
only had one map win, but it was from that default win, upper bracket advantage. But yeah, going back to G2 for a minute, in the qualifier they beat out Youngtis Blue and Salamander, so 2 non-pro league teams, not especially notable teams compared to some of the other big names here. Then they dropped to the lower bracket when they lost out to Team Secret, and then immediately got taken out by M&M. Like you said, M&M had already made breakfast out of Vitality the previous match, which I thought was surprising enough. And then
Yes.
M&M still go on and they defeat 3 Pro League teams in a row. Team Vitality, G2, and then Chaos. And this is M&M, a team that didn't even qualify for Challenger League this season because of teams like BDS. And then, another non-Pro League team in Secret, all the way up there at the top as well. I feel like it's so hard to put money on EU, because you just never know who's going to come out on top on any specific match day.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point. Actually, I think Vitality was one of the bigger shockers for me. And I think that team probably does need a little bit more time, but that roster is going to be very good. So I actually expected them to go a lot further in the tournament than they did. So when they lost to M&M, I thought that was more of a surprise than G2 losing to M&M, to be honest.
So you really think Vitality's new roster, with Goga in there, you think that's going to make and Hungary, of course, going to make some significant differences to the performance?
Yes. I don't know how much time it will take. I don't know if it'll take the first half, but I think in the second half, that team is going to be very good.
Yeah, really interesting. And yeah, I agree with those points. I guess moving on to the LATAM qualifiers, which saw MIBR coming out on top.
Yes.
They had, again, we just mentioned before, they had a clean upper bracket run, if you will. They didn't have to fight back from below. They did drop a map to Black Dragons along the way in the upper bracket final. But apart from that, it was pretty smooth. And then Yeah, they 3-1 to the final, so not too difficult for them. Wondering what your thoughts are on that, like, and if you managed to tune into any of those matches.
I watched the whole thing mostly because we're really good friends with MIBR. Space Station is. Every event we always like make sure to like see them and talk to them and stuff. So I like to support them. I honestly didn't see a way any of the teams were going to beat them. I think that Latin America right now is a lot more split than most regions. I think the top of Latin America is a lot stronger than the bottom of Latin America. Um, I'm not sure why that is exactly, but I just really think like, you got Liquid Phase, NIP, and MIBR. I think all four of those teams are just very strong. And the other teams kind of like fight out for the bottom. So it's kind of exactly what I expected. I think team one is really close, I'll say, but I think that there wasn't anything really in MIBR's way.
And MIBR was a team we talked about a little bit before when we were talking about the Croatia minor OGA, because you guys faced them twice, yeah? You guys lost and then beat them afterwards. So
Yes.
you would be super familiar. Not only did you say you're good friends with MIBR, but you're super familiar with their play style. Is that part of the reason that you had a lot of confidence in them as well?
Yeah, we definitely have like scrimmed them. When they were getting ready for the relegation game, we were scrimming them a lot to help them prepare for that event. So like we have a good feel for like how they play, and they definitely have a good feel for how we play.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, look, I think that kind of polishes off all the online qualifiers. There is the APAC qualifier as well, which was held on LAN. That was fed into by an online qualifier for each of the sub-regions. And I think I don't necessarily want to talk about the online qualifiers for each sub-region, because I think most of them were fairly expected, let's say, except for Japan, which we kind of already touched on, speaking about Norenga earlier. So let's just talk a little bit about the LAN event. So that just happened this weekend. It's Monday right now, yeah? So it was Sunday yesterday. I can't believe it was only yesterday. So yeah, we had 4 teams, one from each of the sub-regions going at it from that. Fnatic from ANZ, Cloud9 from Korea, Cyclops from Japan, and Xavier from Southeast Asia. It was Fnatic who took out Cloud9 2-0. And I think quite a significant upset was Cyclops falling to Xavier 2-1. And then Fnatic Xavier grand final, which it was a 2-0 for Fnatic, but I think it was a lot closer than the score dictates, especially when the second map we saw Xavier come back from a 5-2 deficit and almost beat Fnatic in overtime. So, look, that was a really exciting match to cast for myself. I really feel like this performance from Xavier shows that there are a lot more APAC teams out there that I think aren't given much spotlight, but they can prove that as a dark horse, they can come through a tournament and really make an impact. Was there anything you noticed watching through the qualifier that maybe surprised you?
I think definitely Cyclops like falling so hard as the way, like, I don't know how you did bring up in the cast. I remember this. You were saying like that Dizzle didn't expect the maps, and I don't remember if it was for that game or whatever.
Yeah,
but
no,
like,
it was that game.
Okay, because I don't know if he just didn't expect Clubhouse to be the decider or whatever the case was. Like, I'll probably end up asking him later. But the way that Cyclops played Clubhouse, it didn't look like they like really wanted it to beat Clubhouse, because they don't like, they just, I don't know, us being like we're a Clubhouse team, so like I'm very harsh on teams that play Clubhouse, but the way that they were playing it just didn't look like they were prepared for that to be the decider. So I don't know if something like tricked them on that, or they weren't prepared for it or whatever, but it definitely seemed like Xavier got one on them. And then when I saw like Clubhouse was going to be played in the finals match, I almost knew almost immediately, like I felt like Fnatic was going to win it, because I did see obviously Xavier had some like confidence on it, but they didn't have to beat anything in Cyclops. Cyclops wasn't playing that map right. So I feel like Fnatic kind of got away with Xavier being overconfident in picking that. And they were doing some very interesting things, like the Finca drop into office to like with no construction control, and like was still able to get away with kills. Like or like the Ash jumped in server window to kill the bandit tricker and then bounced out. Like some of the strats were like very weird for me to see. Like I know that people talk about like the APAC aggression or whatever, but like some of the things that I was seeing was like it was definitely interesting than my region. So it was fun to watch, and it made for a really good show, I think.
Yeah, I definitely found that with Xavier. And look, I cast APAC games all the time. What Xavier was doing was totally not normal. Don't worry.
Okay.
But yeah, look, I think that made it all the more exciting, like you said. And yeah, there is a way to play against that, but teams have to make sure they're ready for that. They're actually doing that play style. And Fnatic clearly wasn't in a lot of those rounds, and Cyclops most definitely weren't. Yeah, I certainly really enjoyed watching Xavier for being so unconventional because. We do get it stuck in a kind of cycle of metas where all these teams do the same kind of thing, and you don't get to see a lot of variety. And I think sometimes it just takes someone brave to try something out, try something radically different, and see how it pans out. And sometimes it does work. I think Fnatic was a team that a lot of people had question marks for going into this LAN. I think they were the favorites, but at the same time, they had Mentalist and Tex brought onto the roster instead of Rizraz and Specca. And Fnatic's been in a real lull over the last 9 months. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on Fnatic from an outside perspective. I don't believe you guys have ever actually played against them in an official. I don't want to infringe on your privacy and ask whether you've scrimmed them and such in the past, but you would have seen them at previous LAN events and their accomplishments at Six Invitationals and in Milan as well. What do you think about Fnatic and kind of their fall from grace over this year and how that's looking with their new roster changes heading into the Six Invitational 2020?
We never got to scrim them like at their height or anything like that. We weren't making LAN events that they were making then. So I don't know what it felt like to scrim them then. We scrimmed them a lot in Raleigh. Like after they dropped, we did scrim them once while they were still in. And then when they got kicked out, they used the rest of the time as a boot camp. And we scrimmed them actually a lot because they were out, and it was nice that we didn't have to like show anyone that was still in like some of our stuff. So they were working on things. They didn't perform very well against us in those scrims, but I do think like that's when people were saying like they were in their downfall. That's when they made their like change with aces. And but like we haven't scrimmed them with Tex, not even with Specca or anything like that. I will say that while watching the games, I was very impressed with how well Tex was like entry fragging. And I do think like it's interesting to bring on an additional fragger when you already have people like Magnet and Virtue on your team. So I think like that brings an interesting dynamic that could be very useful. I honestly like watching them, still think they have a lot to work on. I think maybe if there was someone else that was at the tournament that was a little bit stronger, they would have had like some issues. But I think with Xavier being still like a new team, probably like a little bit like stage like shook. I think they were able to take it like quite well, and plus they have a ton of experience on that team to like get them through that qualifier, since the other teams were already like out of their way. I actually don't know what Airwolf looks like without Mentalist, but I guess we'll figure out what that looks like. But they can use the rest of this time to like get ready for the Sixth Invitational. I think that they could be back on the rise. I think it'll take some time because they really kind of like put pieces of the puzzle from like different parts of the world, not like most other teams do. So I'm actually very excited for Fnatic to get better because I like Dizzle, and so hopefully they come back and they're really strong, and it looks like they're getting that way. So
fantastic. Yeah. Well, do you want to butt in, Sky?
Yeah. I got to say, I think I was really impressed by Xavier and their performance at the LAN. It was great to see those guys show up, and I think what the majority of people were expecting was that Fnatic would take their match and Cyclops would take theirs, and would sort of had them sort of duel out in the final. Even looking at the CGG talent predictions, I think it was slated it was literally 50-50 as to who thought would win that final match. So it was really exciting that we didn't see that, and we sort of saw Xavier beat CAG. But it would have still been pretty awesome to see CAG and Fnatic duel out and see what happened there. But yeah, massive props to Xavier, and I hope to see more of them in the future.
Yeah, I've no doubts about that. SEA is getting to be a much stronger region now, which is, I think, Southeast Asia in a lot of people's eyes has been, aside from Aerowolf, the weak link for a while in APAC, because we've seen teams from Japan, Korea, and ANZ go overseas a lot more. But we're going to Six Invitational, and unless if a team like Cyclops gets the invite spot, then we'll be looking at only having 2 APAC regions represented, with 2 ANZ teams, Wildcard and Fnatic both being there, and Wildcard having kept everything the same with their roster, at least to my knowledge, and Fnatic in contrast, they've got those big roster changes. I want to chat a little bit about Six Invitational. Obviously, you guys will be there thanks to qualifying through the open or the closed qualifier for North America online, and we have all of our teams except for just one that will be directly invited by Ubisoft. So we don't know who that team will be, but we do know the other 15. Are there any particular teams here that you're on the lookout for? Because I feel like we're getting to the point in Rainbow Six Esports where there's no G2 dynasty and there's no Empire, which is the big team. There are so many teams out there that I could foresee taking the entire.
I mean, the big thing for us right now is looking at Liquid. They were able to they beat us in a BO1 at Allied, and then they turned around and beat us in a BO2 at Allied without us taking a single map. And then at OGA, they beat us in a BO5 technically. I don't know what to call it. And all we took one map. So the team we're looking at, and I don't see why we would look at another team. Like, obviously Liquid's the team that keeps beating us. So that's like the big one for us.
Wow. So more so than, Na'Vi, Empire, it's really Liquid that you're looking at. Is there a specific reason aside from, your head-to-head experience with them? Is it something about their play style that maybe you're more comfortable playing against teams like Na'Vi, Empire?
I think we definitely are more. I mean, like, a lot of people will say that, like, we are very similar to Empire and like the way that we play. And then Na'Vi, I think Na'Vi, like, I know that they did win the season 10 finals. I feel like they still have a lot to prove because there was a lot of teams there that weren't full rosters. And I don't know if they had like the hardest challenge to win that LAN. I think they still need to prove themselves a little bit. And I think Invitational obviously would be a great place to do that. But I think Liquid has proven themselves like over the years to be a heavy hitter, and they've hit us a lot of times. So yeah, that's the one I'm looking forward to.
Oh, great. Well, I wanted to ask the age-old question of how do you think you're going to go in Invitational? I know everyone always says we're going to win the thing, but I want to make the question a little bit more complicated because I want to get a lot out of you for this question. What is the result that you and your team are going to be satisfied with? What are you going to be disappointed with? And what are you going to be like shooting for? Because I think those are 3 very different things.
Yeah, I think we would be disappointed out in groups because that's not been something that has happened to us in the last year. We always make it out of groups. I think we'll be extremely happy with making it out of first in our groups because that's what we expect. What we're shooting for is to make it past qualifiers because international events, we haven't made it past qualifiers. Invitational.
Cool. Is that quarters? Sorry.
Yeah, quarterfinals.
Quarterfinals. Yeah.
I don't know what I said. Sorry.
You said qualifiers. That's all right.
Oh yeah,
You made it past qualifiers.
Sorry.
Well done. You did it.
We did it, yes. So quarterfinals, G2 beat us at Invitational, and then Secret beat us at Raleigh. So we definitely need to make it past that. And I don't think that we'll be happy without doing so. And then I think past there, it's more of like making sure that we don't cost ourselves the game. Like, I always tell them, like, as long as we're doing like what we're supposed to be doing, it's hard to be upset with the results. I mean, obviously everyone always wants to win, and like I'm not gonna say that I want to lose ever, but if like I mean that Liquid game, we put in our all, and then in the end they came out ahead of us. But I mean, at the end of the day, like we tried, and we like I don't think that we really like besides the thing I already talked to you about Cafe, but we didn't know that beforehand, so that was like a learning thing for us. I think as long as we, play to our best, like we're gonna be happy with it.
Yeah, for sure. And I wish the best of luck to you guys moving into the Invitational. I think it's going to be really exciting, and I think for the reason Dev stated before, it's not like we're going into this event saying, oh, G2, it's theirs to lose or it's Empire's to lose. It's anyone's to win really, and I think that's going to make it so much more exciting. I guess we'll move forward now into our roster update / roster change section. We actually had E United, so their new roster has been acquired. Yeti, Grixer, Callout, Forest, and Alphama. What are your thoughts on this, and on this lineup? Is they something that you're sort of scared of? I don't know, just like what are your thoughts on E United?
I thought the change was interesting. When I first heard it, I didn't really understand why they were bringing Alphama over. Hang on one second.
No problem.
Bringing over like a European player. I mean, like I know like we did this with like Slebin and Gomfi, and now we're doing it with Alphama. I do think that there's really good support players that are in North America. I don't know where we're not utilizing them. I'm obviously biased with Chala. I think Chala is a really good support player, and I think he's got really good aim. Jarvis has been known to also be the same. So, I mean, it's their choice, and it's always hard to know exactly what's going on or what they see or why everyone makes the decisions that they make. I think Yeti is a gamble definitely for them. He's had good seasons and bad seasons, and that's something that they are taking like a gamble on. I don't think he's a horrible player. I don't know who I would have got instead of him, but I definitely think that, not going for. I'm trying to like think of another player. I'm not even sure, but like they had players already. They just had like this weird situation where they like almost meshed with Rogue and had Easily and Vert for like a couple days and then lost them, but then didn't go back with their old players, got new players that were on other Challenger League teams that they beat. I don't know. It was a very weird situation that they got in, and I don't want to like diss on it or anything like that because I want to see it like grow and see where it goes to. The only thing I was a little frustrated with is I do think that there's North American support players that are like good enough for that spot. So I guess we'll see how Alphama does. As far as being scared of the roster, no, I don't think so. I don't think that. I mean, we're very confident in like our ability to play with any team in the world. So I do think that they'll like put up a good fight, but not scared.
I guess sort of going onto globally, Dev briefly mentioned before when we were talking about the European qualifiers that BDS have removed their coach Fisker and also player Panics. And Dev noted that this is unfortunately for Panics the second time that this extremely unfortunate situation has occurred. I'm interested to hear your take on how you think this will sort of affect them moving into the SI or 6 Invitational.
I know that I think it'll be okay. It'll be actually kind of interesting to see exactly where Alems falls, because he like is known for being a very good Maestro player. So I'm sure they'll have him sit on that, which means that Ranchero has to come off of that as well as RXWD, I think, as well spent time on it. Panix played the smoke role, which I know RXWD is a smoke player. So he'll probably get sent over to that. Ranchero will end up playing probably like the Rome game, I guess, with Shaiko. Is probably what my guess is. Ranchero's like good with Vision Ops, Pulse Falc, and he does play a ton of Jaeger. I know that. So he'll probably end up on the Rome with Shaiko. I don't know what operators exactly. I think the roles will be okay. I just think the whole situation is just kind of like really disappointing, to be honest. But like, I don't want to get too much into it because it's like another team's business. But for Panics, like it's just really disappointing.
Yeah, I get that, and yeah, I mean it is another team's business, and from outsiders we don't know everything that's going on, but I think it's safe to say, yeah, Panics. Look, if you read his tweet longer, you'll see that he's an incredibly dedicated person, and best of luck to him in the future. And not so much roster changes. We do have some team organization changes locally here in ANZ. Oddity, who's made quite a mark within the ANZ scene with their performances at the Six Masters against Fnatic and also online previously, almost actually stealing Wildcard's land spot at the APAC LAN this season. They only just lost it on the final day, falling to one of the lower teams, Fury. So Oddity have announced that they will be departing the organization, Oddity, and I was chatting to one of the coach actually earlier today. They said they'll be going under the name of Nixian, which is one of their old names. I don't know if I've just leaked that, but oh well, too bad, Cynics. I think it's their old name. They're just going to go back to that. And I think a huge move for our recently promoted Pro League team at ANZ Rhythm. They've been acquired by Kanga Esports, which is an Australian esports organization. So big congratulations to those guys. They've made a lot of I don't want to say roster changes, but more like roster additions recently. They've been really out their roster with support staff, which I think is great, especially because ANZ, we don't often have a lot of support staff in our teams, and support staff coaches and analysts from other regions often don't come and support Australian teams just because of the financial side of things. There's a lot more money in teams overseas in North America or Europe. So, hats off to Rhythm and Kanga, I guess I should say, especially if you see on Twitter, they have this great video where they've dubbed over the voices of Mozzie and Gridlock and had a bit of fun there. So yeah, hats off to them. But that's all for roster changes and that kind of thing. We're going to blitz through the Pro League upcoming matches for this week. Sky, did you want to jump in and take us through some of those?
Yeah, sure. So we can sort of go through this pretty rapid fire, I'd say. So to begin, we have got Latam. So we've got Black Dragons versus Elevate, NIP versus FaZe, Liquid versus Ints, Team 1 versus Team MIBR. For those first matches, Lycan, who are you who is your money on for those opening matches for Latam?
So Black Dragons over Elevate, FaZe over NIP, Liquid over Ints, and then MIBR over 1.
Dev, what about you?
Well, I was just going to kind of say, I mean, I'd sit with wherever Lycan is, to be honest. So I'm not going to question the man when he's clearly got so much knowledge on these teams. The interesting thing there is obviously you said that you kind of see Latin America split kind of 4-4, and you called FaZe over NIP. Is that where you think they're sitting at the moment?
Yeah, that one's hard to call because I actually don't know what either two of those look like very well right now. So I think that one's going to be definitely the match to watch, and obviously it's sitting in the number 2 spot for a reason because it'll be the match of the day. But I think if you're going to watch one match, it should be that one.
Awesome. Moving on to the next region, we've got your home region, Lycan. We've got EG versus LG, Reciprocity versus TSM, E United versus Tempo Storm, and finally Dark Zero versus Space Station Gaming. What are your thoughts on that, Lycan? You might be slightly biased in regards to the final match.
Definitely. I think that EG actually is going to get their revenge on LG from the qualifiers. I think definitely the Rec TSM game's going to be really good too. I I think Rec will win. But that one, I think that one's hard to call pre-match. I think it really depends on where the map ends up going. The really cool thing about week 1 that some people don't know is you actually get 3 bans in the first week, which is not the same for the rest of the weeks. So this week is really like probably the team's favorite week because you have like a lot better control over where the map goes. Because after this week, then it goes. You have like the auto ban, and then you only get 2 after that. So, but anyway, Rec, I'll go with them since I don't know the map. And then I think Tepo Storm is going to be E United only because they don't have Alfama yet. I think if they had Alfama, I think E United wins that. And then obviously, I think we're going to win.
Got to be confident. Yeah, Dev.
Yeah, cool. I mean, I'm keen for it to all kick off. Yeah, I think North America is shaping up to be really exciting, especially. And what's going to be great is these matches are all going to be a forecast for the Six Invitational, which is just over a month away. So we'll get an idea of how these teams are looking, and you'll get to be accumulating VODs of all these teams that you can in research coming up into Six Invitational. I have no doubt about it. So for Europe, the matches that we've got coming up this week. Now we've got 2 new Challenge League teams promoted into Pro League for Europe as well, just like North America. Fours versus Navi, G2 versus BDS, Giants versus Chaos, and Vitality against Empire. Europe's always really hard to pick for me. What are you thinking, Lycan?
So mine might actually be kind of weird, but I think Navi will beat Fours. I think Fours is kind of going through it a little bit right now. And obviously Navi winning season 10. Hopefully they should be still in good form. I actually think that G2 is going to be BDS. I think most of that is because of the recent roster change. I mean, they've probably had 3 weeks at tops that they've been working with him. So I think that G2 might actually win that one. I don't know if they'll win their Wednesday or their Friday. I think they're Fridays. I don't know if they'll win whatever their second one is. I think they'll win that one just because BDS just had the roster change. Giants, I think, will beat Chaos, and then Empire beat Vitality. I think Vitality needs some time still.
Yeah, you said that Vitality is looking to get there eventually, but yeah, maybe Empire first week's a bit too ambitious. Yeah, it takes some time to see these things play out. And look, once we finally do get to see Vitality spend some more time with Goga and Hungary, I think it'll be really exciting to see what they can accomplish heading into future events. And look, with that roster change, I'm pretty sure Vitality, like they're not even a French team anymore, which is really strange to me. You know, I don't think Giants is no longer a majority French team, and Vitality are no longer a majority French team, and those are the French teams. So, I mean, I guess BDS is where the French fans will have to flock from now on. Pardon me. So for ANZ, we're not going to go through all the APAC sub-regions, but we do have a bit of ANZ bias here. So let's go Oddity, Sinister, Fnatic against Kanga, also known previously as Rhythm when we wrote this script. Wildcard's going to verse Homeless, Mind Freak against Fury. Look, I know that you might not be as across ANZ, but do you have any thoughts coming into this week of play matches?
So I didn't know that. I wrote down for Oddity and Sinister. I thought they would split. And I think Fnatic will 2-0. Well, I didn't see the other games. Wildcard versus who?
Wildcard versus Homeless, yeah.
I think they'll split. And then I think Mind Freak will 2-0.
Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I'm really excited for this. There's a lot of matches coming up this week. So many that I've learned when I was casting ANZ Pro League, trying to prepare for the APAC Pro League finals, keeping tabs on all the other APAC teams, then trying to also prepare for like the other all the other teams. Like, there's just too many, man. Like, especially if you start having to look at like North American and European Challenger League, because there are so many stars over there as well. It's just it becomes
Yeah.
so unwieldy. Like, I mean, how many VODs a week can you actually watch? Yeah, so
No, I feel that.
yeah, oh no, I have no doubts. Like, I think I watch a lot of VODs. I've got nothing on you guys, support staff, coaches, analysts. Yeah, so no, I'm really excited for the Pro League to get back going again. So we're just about ready to round this off. Sky, this is when we do our top picks, which is me and Sky will pick our favorite community piece of content from the week. And this week we had some pretty cool stuff. I've got something that I chose specifically for you, Lycan, but Sky's got something else first, which is centered around Fnatic.
Yeah, so I actually saw this yesterday when I'm scrolling through Twitter, and it's actually a really cool sort of weapon skin. Obviously, I'm sure that we are all familiar with the esports program within Rainbow Six, and with that, we get some really cool team weapon skins. And this weapon skin has been translated onto an actual real life sort of replica. Which I think is pretty cool, and as you can see, we'll scroll through some of the photos. Is the Fnatic weapon skin, and it's been posted just after they claimed victorious at the APAC 6 Invitational qualifiers. As you can see, really clean. Like the name on the handle there just looks really, really nice. And yeah, like what a sick skin. Massive shout out to Zeku at ZEKIIU on Twitter if you want to go check out his stuff. He's done some other cosplaying in the past. We've seen him around at events before. He's a really cool guy. Yeah, massive props to him. What about you, Dev? What's your host pick this week?
Well, I couldn't resist a set of Space Station cards from Candor. I just dumped them in the chat for you. You've probably seen these already, like, and no doubt you have, but I love these so much. Candor, we've featured him so many times because he does such good work, and yeah, it was great to have some USN champ versions of the cards. So that was my pick for this week.
Yeah, and those cards like are kind of special for me and Bosco too, because those cards are the moment when they were like pulled us out and they congratulated us for graduating college. Like that, as we're standing there, that's that moment right there. So that's pretty special for both of us because it's tough work, like going to school, and Bosco obviously playing, and when I was playing, I was going to school, playing, and I had a family that I was also, taking care of. So it pulls you in a lot of different ways. And now to finally be done with it just like, it meant a lot to be noticed for that. So pretty cool.
Yeah, so some of the work Candor does in the community is really, really awesome. He never seems to stop. He's been even like churning out community cards now as well. So even if you're not a notable pro player, he's still pumping out these cards, which is pretty awesome. Not gonna lie. So massive shout out to him, massive props. He does some really awesome stuff.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it for the program tonight. We covered everything we wanted to, and I just want to say, Lycan, look, you've taken so much of your time tonight, and I'm saying tonight, it's actually the wee hours of the morning for you. Thank you so much for coming along and taking time out of your night. What time is it right now?
4:20.
For 4:20 a.m. Of course, it had to be 4:20. Well, thank you so much for making the time for us, and good luck in your matches this week. And I know it's a bit early to say it, but good luck at the 6th Invitational.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks so much for coming on, man.
And that's it for tonight. We've got another episode next week. We'll have Cthulhu back as well from Russia. Yes, we do get to have him back again, and so that'll be next week, next Monday, 8 p.m. Sydney, Melbourne time. And yeah, until then, tune in for Pro League on the Rainbow Six channel. There's honestly more Pro League than you could ever possibly watch. So make sure you tune in for that. But Sky, are you all ready to
I'm ready to close it off.
All right, then if we're all ready, then thanks for everyone for watching, and we'll see you next week.